Welcome. Welcome to this new edition of the SoConnect Data Meetup. And tonight we have a great session about Power BI. More specific, we have the battle of the data preparation tools. Again, for the session, if you have any questions, please type them in the chat or wait for the end of the presentation where we have some time reserved for all your questions. Okay, so who am I? My name is Daan Oosters. I'm your host for tonight. I am lead BI consultant with over 5 years of experience in the field of Power BI. And luckily, tonight I have 3 great colleagues at my disposal who will be presenting this session. First of them is my dear colleague, Laura. Laura is one of our BI specialists with a main focus on Power BI. She has a background in geography, and from there on, she rolled right into the field of data and Power BI. She's currently working at one of the largest financial services companies in the Netherlands, where she's active as Power BI administrator and consults her clients on new Power BI innovations and how to take advantage of them. Next, we have Brit. Brit has over 5 years of experience with Power BI as well. She works for our Center of Excellence, where she helps out many of our clients. And whether it is report development or improving performance of existing reports, Brit can handle it all. And finally, our last Power BI expert for tonight is Ruslan. Ruslan has a master's degree in mathematics and system programming, and he's working for Sogeti for about a year now. Ruslan has many years of experience with Power BI, and he now works for the same client as Laura, where he's doing amazing things with Power BI. This evening, Laura, Brit, and Ruslan will take on a battle between 3 well-known Power BI data transformation tools. The first one is the most popular one and the most well-known one, I think I can say. It's the dataset, created by using Power Query Editor in Power BI Desktop, and Laura will tell you all about it. After that, data flows are explained by Ruslan, and after that, there are the datamarts explained by Brit. And finally, of course, we cannot ignore Fabric, so Laura will take us on a journey discovering what Fabric has to add to the whole picture. So, and how are we going to make this comparison then? We are going to look and compare the tools by looking at certain characteristics of the tools. So first, we are going to tell what is it. We're going to look at the complexity for using the tool. We're going to look for the target audiences for the tool as well. And after that, we're going to look in what use cases the tool should be used for, is best used for. And of course, also the pros and cons of it. Okay, I have talked enough. Let's dive into some tooling. Laura, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Great, then the floor is yours.
Okay. And the most exciting part, sharing your screen and hope it goes well. I don't see anything.
I see it.
You see it. Okay.
First slide.
Okay, well, let's just step to the data set. So I'm here to present the most familiar data preparation tool in Power BI. And most people don't know initially, but when you're creating your first reporting in Power BI Desktop, you're also creating a data set. So a data set, what is it? A data set contains your data model. It contains the source connections, which enable you to connect to your data. It contains the storage mode that you can set as a property to each table.
Laura, sorry to interrupt. We cannot see the slide. Or I can see.
Let me try again. In the meantime, we have a visitor.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. So let me go data model, your source connections, different storage mode for your tables, and the relationships, of course, between the tables. So you can easily filter a table by the property of a related table. It also contains the transformations that you do in Power Query, either by clicking it together in the user interface, or if you're proficient enough, then you can write your own transformations in Power Query. It also contains your DAX measures. Do people still see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah?
Not
Ruslan?
for me, no.
You don't see it? Oh.
I don't, and I see that some people can't.
Oh.
I see the first. I see only the first page.
Okay, well, this is what I was afraid of. Even kijken.
We checked it a lot of times, and
Yeah.
it was okay, and even
Yeah, and now it
especially
doesn't
when it's for
work.
real.
Yeah, but that is a demo, right? Even kijken. I'm gonna resume to the page. Can anyone confirm to me that we see a sheet?
I can
I
see
see
your
only the
sheet.
first one.
You see only the first one.
I can see dataset sheet.
Yeah, same
I
for me.
see
I can see
data
the right one.
sets. What is it? What it is?
Yeah.
With
What is
pictures and
it?
stuff like that. Relationships right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Most people can see it looking at the chat.
Okay. Then I think I'm just going to proceed and just hope
Yeah.
that this doesn't occur anymore. Maybe
It's
it's
all right.
something with the connection. Okay. Let me proceed with my story. So a dataset also contains your docs for in-depth analysis of your data. A dataset is created in Power BI Desktop and published as a dataset in the Power BI service. And in the Power BI service, you can publish a dataset in one workspace and build multiple reports on top of this dataset. This is basically the intended use. And because there are very wide access control capabilities in the service, yeah. Even kijken hoor. You can control who has access to your data and even certain parts of your data via row level security. Okay, so the complexity of datasets. Power BI datasets are often the starting point for a wide range of users, and the complexity therefore varies, and it depends on the size of the model. So the number of connections, the number of tables, relationships, and the volume of the data. The size of the audience, because it determines the access policies and the resource consumption of the dataset. It even kijken hoor. It contains the complexity is also determined by the transformations and the metrics in DAX. And on top of that, okay, thank you. And on top of that, I would also say that the availability, integrity, and confidentiality of the data determines complexity, because it also determines the compliancy requirements, and that those may become very complex. So based on this, sorry, I see a lot of things happening in my presentation.
I'm sorry, Laura. I'm just checking whether people can see it or not.
Yeah, okay. So let's just pause for a second and do the poll. Are people still not seeing the presentation?
Yeah. Most of them are seeing it, but a few aren't seeing it, which is very...
Maybe it's a connection thing?
Might be.
I'm not sure.
So there is a possibility to browse over to the correct sheet by yourself manually. Laura's now at sheet number 7. Maybe that will work for now.
Yeah.
It's never experienced this.
No, me neither.
This is something new.
Okay.
Huh.
Okay. Yeah, agreed. Maybe Dan, can people contact or chat you instead of in the chat, so I can proceed with my presentation?
Yeah,
or
just
are
proceed.
we going to fit? Yeah.
Proceed anyway.
Yeah, but if people are doing it in the chat, I literally, I'm distracted.
Ah, okay. Yeah, you see
Yeah.
all the chats coming in.
Yeah.
Okay. Cannot control it. Check on my machine as well. Is it an idea that I try to share it?
Sure, but
It's
yeah.
it's a little bit just for now, the first part.
I just restarted my Teams and it works now.
Okay.
Oh,
Sure. Okay.
okay. Hmm.
Then maybe it's, yeah. If the people who cannot see the presentation can restart their Teams and join the session.
Check as well.
Yeah, we
This
start.
is exciting, right?
We are presenting Microsoft products, you know.
And I thought like demoing Fabric was the most exciting part.
At least not the most challenging. Okay, for my second laptop, re-entering the meeting did it actually. Seems to have done the
Okay.
trick. So then, for people who cannot see the correct slide, which is now in blue business user, please just leave and go back to the meeting, and then it should be all right. And of course, apologies for
Yes.
these technicalities, but
Yeah.
right, I would say just continue, Laura.
Okay. I would kindly want to ask people, Dan, can you be chatted? Okay. So if I want to go proceed with the presentations, then please chat Dan, because otherwise I can't proceed.
Yeah, you can maybe
Okay.
close the chat screen, Laura.
How do I do that?
Yeah. Oh, you see all the
yeah, I
the
just see
things
the
popping up.
pop-ups for everyone.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
annoying.
exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Well.
Okay.
We'll be quiet now.
Okay. Yeah, apologies, people. I hope that anyone joining now can see the presentation. Okay. So I was talking about complexity and about all the factors it depends on. And it varies really, the complexity of a data set. So based on this variation, the target audience could easily range from a business user who reports mostly for himself or for his team to enterprise teams who are developing data models and who are providing them to end users so that they can build their visualization. And by the way, before I forget, the business user proficiency is not static because Power BI maturity can increase in an organization. So a business user might easily become a citizen developer. So target audience. Since datasets are containers for data modelers, the main persona, I would say, using a dataset is the data modeler. And I think this is one of the newer profiles within the Power BI environment. And because previously the split between data modelers and report builders was not so clear, these are some of the new features that have come out that have advanced the split in roles. Like the feature to download only the report layer from the service. It is evident that there's a distinction between a data modeler and the one creating the report layer. But oftentimes these two roles overlap. That means as well that the profile of a data modeler is actually very wide. And in general, some functional knowledge and some experience with Power BI will get you a long way. So in practice, you see a wide range of users from engineers, analysts, and end users all creating models of various complexity. What would be the best use case scenarios for data sets? So I would first say self-service reporting. So present a data set and let users create their reports because users often know best what they want to see. And presenting and developing a data set is far less maintenance for the developers. I would also say that a good use case scenario is in general enterprise reporting, because data sets have extended governance capabilities, premium options, and automation potential. And KPI reporting. So you can formulate your metrics based on different sources and present them in one container for reporting. So what are the pros? So you have extensive connect capabilities. I see here 120, but it's actually over 180. You can do your local transformations using Power Query, the ATL2 Lite, and it has extended options for analyzing your data. It's also easy to start with and cheap, because you need a pro license. And in Power BI Desktop, you don't even need a license. But you're not creating a data set, but yeah. But data sets have distinct limitations. For one, if you want to clean data that looks like this, it will be difficult to do, even if you have advanced transformation techniques. Power Query is also a lightweight ETL tool. So if you're really working with different, like large data volumes, and you do intense operations like grouping, then Power BI really doesn't like what you're doing. Also, complex transformations or data types, it cannot deal with it. If you see data types like this, you can just use a different tool, because it will probably be very difficult. And Power BI Desktop is a limitation in my view. So why do I need to download software, import the data locally, save it as a copy somewhere and on my device, and then I publish it? From a compliancy perspective, this is really an important limitation. Duplication of queries. So I can create different data sets containing, like, for instance, the same calendar query in 10 of my reports. And once I add one field to the calendar query, I need to adjust that in all of my data sets. So if I have 10, you can imagine the work that you need to do if you need to adjust like all the queries. And management of data sets can be very messy. I can provide a data set containing a model to a few users, and I can give them build permission on this data set. And the next thing I know, my lineage looks like this. And you have different data sets with all different kinds of access policies. Yeah, it's actually not what you want to do. You actually want to do this. Just one data set with one access policy. So in general, Power BI datasets are the all-rounder for users of different skill sets. Because the complexity varies, the range of features is also so wide. You can do a lot with it, but it does have some very distinct cons, and maybe even because you can do so much with it. So yeah, these are the conclusions, and I'm very curious if dataflows and datamarts might have some abilities to solve the cons of datasets. So let's get to Ruslan.
Okay, thank you, Laura. I'll try to share it. Let me try to take control.
This is gonna be exciting again. Yeah, okay.
Do you see it, guys?
Yeah.
Oh, thanks God. Okay. Okay, so next is data flow. Yeah, and you already see that dataset has some advantages, disadvantages. So data flow sometimes better, but only sometimes. So let's go to data flow. So I would call it Power Query in a cloud. So it's data flow. It's a data preparation and transformation feature within Microsoft Power BI ecosystem. It provides a dedicated environment for users to connect to various data, to transform, clean, enrich data, and create resourceable data sets. And here you can see that it has a similar functionality to Power BI query. And also it's user-friendly, so even business users can prepare some data flow, and it should be simple to make some first preparations and cleaning data, like change format, renaming something, to add some column. So it's pretty simple to make it, and it's still online. Let's go to complexities. There are actually more complexities, but I just listed several ones. And large volumes of data may require more complex transformations and optimizations, and it's data volume. So officially, Microsoft says that you can use a lot of tables, and you can use a lot of rows, like 400 tables. Amazing number, and 2 billion rows for one table. But in practice, this number is much lower, and it's still doesn't work like we all want. So the bigger table is, the more complexity we have, and the number and diversity of data sources can increase complexity as well. Also, dealing with data quality issues such as missing values or outliers, even errors, adds complexity as well. And also, about transformation, complex transformation requirements, and such as some custom calculations increase complexity as well. So all of these things can increase it, and it's something about complexity. What about target audience? So in general, the target audience is pretty wide. It's from business users to data professionals, but I would say that it's mostly for data modelers and ETL developers. Because for business users, it's still okay. They create some data sets, but it's not something related to visual stuff. It's not about visual. Business users prefer to work with visuals mostly, and maybe it's more for ETL developers again and modelers, and it's not enough for example, for data engineers, because engineers prefer some other tools like SQL related tools or Databricks, something like that. So let's go and check some use case. The best use case, just imagine the situation when you need to prepare data for your reporting. But what if your colleagues and other departments also use the same data, just like you, and prepare the data separately for each data set? In this case, it's easiest to have shared tables and not repeat the same queries again and again from dataset to dataset. So in this scenario, you can use Dataflow as a single resource with already cleaned and prepared data. So in this case, your colleagues can also have access to the data flow. So if you prepared some data flow, your colleague could connect to that later and change a little, or prepare something, or add a few rows, maybe one column for this data. And as cool stuff that if you need to change something, you just go to Dataflow and change it. It means that you don't need to change backend Power Query stuff in each report. So it's the easiest way to do. So it was the best scenario, and let's talk about pros and cons. So again, I already mentioned that it's user-friendly and no code. It's not code solution, so it means that Dataflow and is designed for business users also, and they might not have any experience in coding, and they don't have the skills. And some simple things you can prepare without any coding. About transformations and custom columns created in Dataflow, they can be reused across multiple reports, and it's again something I mentioned in the best data in the best use case. Also, about scheduled refresh per data source is possible. Yes, it's possible. It's something really cool because, for example, if your table is refreshing daily and some other table is refreshing quarterly, you can separately create in the settings the refresh, and it's not like it works, for example, for Power BI desktop when you refresh everything at the same time. And multiple team members can collaborate and maintaining data flows, improving efficiency, and allowing division of labor. And it's really cool that you can work as a team and improve this data flow for the whole company if it's needed. So about cons, I would say that the biggest problem is that data flow has a lot of limitations, and yeah, when you start any project with data flow, you need to understand that it's not maybe the best solution if you work with big data. In this case, maybe you should use some SQL related stuff or something like that. So it always depends, and you need to understand that yes, it's cool feature, but pretty limited. And for example, the first cons, it's about the internet, so it's still online feature, and you can't use it offline. I would say that it's advantage and disadvantage at the same time, because yeah, actually it makes sense that yeah, they did it because for online using. So of course, without the internet, it doesn't work. And some complex transformations might still require Power Query formulas or custom scripts, and that's still some limits. And you need to know, for example, what you can do or what you can't. And the last one, it's actually something I already had as an issue when, for example, your data has some errors. Automatically, they replace from errors to null, and that's not good because if you use it by default, data flow, you don't see actually these errors, and you don't know that there are some errors. Oh, some other cat. So. Yeah, it's again some limits, and maybe for professionals, it's not the best scenario, because we always want to control the situation. We always want to know if we have errors and how to fix them. Yeah, and in summary, yeah, Power BI data flow offer a range of benefits, but I would say that it's still a raw tool. So we know that we have some future, and Laura will tell us a little about it, but we are talking about the first generation of this tool, and it has some advantages, but still we have some issues. I think they need to do something with that. I'm talking mostly about limitations. So that's all. Do we need to show a demo now or later, Dan? What? I can't hear you.
Yeah, unmute. We have some time if you
Okay.
can do it in about 5 minutes.
Okay, so I can show you how we can create data flow. Let me share my screen. Okay, do you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So Laura already prepared some data samples for us, and you see that it's SharePoint folder, and how to prepare something here. So we need to go to, okay, I need to cancel it. We need to go to Power BI service and go to workspace and find with a new button data flow. Copy this path, and in this case, it's SharePoint folder, but there are a lot of options here. So you can have more than 150, something like that. So a lot of different ones. Oh, sorry. Next, we just need to use our option we need. And yeah, do you see my screen?
Sure.
Okay, yeah. Cool. I understand that I can't show it for now. Okay, so and here we have something similar what we have in Power Query. Yeah. So next, after that, we can filter it and save it as this result. So next steps are similar. Let's go to Power Query. So here we see something what we usually do in Power Query. So again, it's the same data, 3 tables, and we combine these tables with merging to one table, dim employee. And you can see all steps of preparation here. One good way, so we can go to advanced edit and copy this code and pass it to data flow when we creating it. But I already done it. So let's go to okay. Let's go to just new Power BI report, and we can connect the data flow we already prepared. So we just need to choose a data flow here. We have a few icons actually, because some icon is related to Power Apps, because actually data flow works with Power Apps and Power Automate as well. So, but for now I need to use a page I already created. You see here that there are 3 data flows. So if I cancel and go to workspace, you see that there is 1 data flow, 2 and 3. And let's go back. We see them here. And for dim employee, I created 2 tables here, but actually there are 4. I just hide it to once. So here, if we go, yeah, you can see. I just made enabled load here, and we see 2 tables for now. So if you go here, we just click on the table we need, and this table is already prepared. You don't need to change anything. So you just load it, and when you go to Power Query, yeah, you see this. This is the table we need. If we go to Power Query, you see that there are no any steps. So here we had it. And here we do not have it. So it's the goal that you already prepared your data somewhere, not in Power BI, and it was just a matter of a few minutes. So yeah, that's all. So next, it's datamart, and Brit will tell you about it. So could you
Yes,
take control?
thank you. I am trying to share my screen. I hope all goes well. And please let me know if you don't see my screen. Let's go to the right slides. So, can you all see my screen? Right slides?
So far, so good.
All right, great. So let's talk about datamarts. So, does it work? Yes. So what is a datamart? A datamart is actually a combination of several Power BI components, and it's used to bridge the gap between analysts and more like the dedicated BI team. And the datamart consists of 3 components. The first is data flow. Oh, we have a visitor again. And the data flow is not really visible in a datamart. It's more under the hood. And this is where your transformations happen. It's, I think, a little comparable to what Ruslan explained. The next part of datamart is more of a data warehouse. It's your data is stored in a fully managed Azure SQL database. And this database is automatically created in your datamart. And interesting is that you can access this database via a SQL endpoint. So you can use, for example, Management Studio to access your database. And the last part is the data set. So a datamart automatically creates a data set, which you can use in Power BI, of course. And the most beautiful thing about a datamart is that all of this is used in your browser. So there is no need for any tools or downloads. It's a unified web UI where you can query your data, build your data model, create relationships, explore your data, etc. So the complexity. The complexity of a datamart is it's as complex as you want. So it depends on, for example, the size of your model. It's just like datasets or Power Query and Power BI desktop. And of course, your transformations. The more transformations you do, the more complex you make your data marts. So that makes it extra complex. What also makes data mart a little more complex is that we're not entirely sure where it fits in the Power BI architecture. I'll talk more about that a little later. The target audience. It's mostly meant for BI developers, so people who have already some experience in data warehousing, Power BI. But because it's all in a unified web UI in your browser, it's also really cool for analysts to use it as a self-service component. So when can you best use a data mart? So it's self-service, as I said, so you can use it for testing purposes. So maybe you have an ID you want to test before you actually implement it in your actual data warehouse. You can explore your data. It's really easy to learn. So you can explore your data, write queries, SQL queries, and connect to Power BI to create visuals, of course, and quick changes. There's no need for a dedicated BI team where you ask for changes and it takes a couple of weeks before the changes are made. You can do it yourself and it's really quick. So as I said, it's not entirely sure when to use a data mart. So maybe a little spoiler alert again, Fabric might be the answer to this. So Laura is going to tell you more about this at the end of this presentation. So the pros, what are the advantages of data marts? So I think this is very comparable to datasets. So we have quite a lot of connectors. Actually, it is more than 120, I believe. And for transform, this is basically the same as dataset. It's based on Power Query. It's an intuitive UI. It's low code, and it's like a light ETL tool. And for the analyze part, well, you can write DAX measures in data marts, create data models, relationships, of course, and explore your data with visual queries and SQL queries. And then we have the biggest advantages, and that is what I already told you. It's a unified web UI, so there is no need for tools anymore, no need to download Power BI. It's all in your browser. The cons, so you need a premium or premium per user license for this. That might be a little disadvantage. It's only available in premium or premium per user workspaces. And the second is, as already said it's not entirely clear where this fits in the Power BI architecture. You have extensive data warehouse possibilities in Azure. Why would you want it in Power BI too? So it's not really clear why and when you should use this. And in summary, so Datamart is self-service, low-code, no-code. It's a data warehousing solution for analysts and BI developers. It has a low skill set to learn, but the solution as a whole is more of a medium complexity. As I said, we don't really know when to use it. That makes it a little harder. It does have quite extensive possibilities. And as you can see, it's used for testing, exploring, and quick changes. As for the future outlook, of course, Fabric. And yeah, it's easy to use, easy to learn with the intuitive UI. And yeah, the cons is really that the premium or premium per user license. So let's make this a little more visual for you. I'm going to do a little demo, but it's more via screenshots, so not a live demo, unfortunately. So how do you create a data mart? You create it via your workspace, premium workspace, of course. Just like Ruslan showed, you click new and you click data mart in this case. And the first thing you have to do is name your data mart. Then it gets created. Power BI is setting up the data mart. This might take some time, but after it's done setting up, you get a starting screen. It says start building your data mart, as you can see. And this is where you start with getting your data. So what does it look like when you get your data? This is the transforming your data step. I think this is all very familiar for everyone. It's just like Power Query in Power BI. You can do all your transformations here, get more data, enter data, merge or append queries, and see all the applied steps to the tables. So it's really very familiar. So when you click Save, it's going to load the data, and this also might take some time. But when it's done loading, you get an overview of all your tables in your data mart. And this overview consists of 3 tabs. And the first tab is the Data tab. This is where you can see your data, open your tables, see all the tables you have, all the columns that are in it. And the next is the Query tab, where you can write queries and explore your data even more. And you have the Model tab. So I'll dive a little more into that. So if you want to query your data, there is 2 options to do this. The first is a visual query, which looks like a little like a data flow. You can add steps you need to write your query. This is really useful if you don't have experience with SQL, for example. But if you do have experience with SQL, then you can also write SQL queries, as you can see in the right screenshots. It's just T-SQL, so it's very comparable with Management Studio. And then we have the model parts. So this is also very similar to Power BI Desktop. This is where you create your data model. You can create relationships between tables and everything you need for your data model. And you can even create row level security in this in the data mart. So yeah, that really concludes it for data marts actually. So I'll give the floor to Laura again.
Well, it's going to be exciting. Just to check, do I take control or do I share my screen? Ik hoor het niet.
You can try to take control.
Okay. Yes, it works. Okay. So a summary of our findings. Who will win the battle of the data prep tools? So let me present the contenders. So a dataset is the all-rounder with all the functionalities that you might need for data preparation. But it's so versatile that it's really in danger of mismanagement and a query and data duplication. Also, Power BI Desktop creates a local copy of the data, and that's a serious liability. So dataflows solves the problem of data duplication by enabling you to create shared dimensions, all in the cloud as well. However, for an ETL tool, Power Query is often too light and too limited to do the job. And datamarts should have been the solution to all these issues with Power BI Desktop. Issues with Power BI Desktop having to import a local, having to import your data locally, and the SQL endpoint could have provided some more capabilities in terms of ETL. But however, it's not very clear how datamarts fit into a BI architecture. If you look at the target audience, most of the users will probably already have some warehousing capabilities in Azure. So the question is, why would you duplicate everything in Power BI with the datamart? So based on these findings, and let's give our viewers a little bit of time. What would be the data preparation tool of your preference? So, Dan, I think you're going to send out a poll. Very curious.
There it is. It actually contains 2 questions. So after the first, please go to the second.
I'm voting for my my data sets. I just like them. I'm just used to them.
Kind of close, actually.
Yeah, datamarts is like
Quite
a
popular.
serious contender.
Yeah.
I'm surprised, actually.
It does have everything. To be
That's
honest,
true.
it does
Right.
have everything.
Yeah.
It just had some very, bad positioning,
Mhm.
maybe.
The other hand, if you look at who actually uses it, that's quite less.
Yeah.
I didn't expect this result for the first question.
Well, it's good. People can start experiencing now tomorrow with the datamarts and the dataflows.
Yeah. 40%. Wow.
Yeah.
Maybe the sequel did the trick.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Oops. Well.
I think we have most of the results now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. Thanks for answering, everybody.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. So datasets is the winner. Well.
Market research at the spot.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I'm just messing up the presentation again. Okay. Okay. So now that we've determined the winner datasets, I do actually have some interesting outlooks for the people who have voted for datamarts, because I think Fabric will present very similar opportunities. Fabric is still in public preview, so it's a little buggy. But with this part, we would like to show you what kinds of experiences you can expect when storing, processing, and analyzing your data in one platform. So Fabric, first of all, what is it? Like I mentioned, it is one platform for all your data and analytic services with the familiar Power BI interface. And central to this architecture is the One Lake, which serves as a central location for your data storage. And all the services that you see can talk to the data in this One Lake through endpoints. So there's basically no need to copy your data from one location or one platform to the other, which is a very important benefit. It's not. This is not launched yet, but it will be powered by services like a Copilot, which will help you build pipelines and data flows and reports, etc., all using natural language. And it's SaaS, so you only need to provision a Fabric capacity, same as a premium capacity, and you can start working with your data. What does this mean for all the data preparation tools that we discussed? they will be somewhat rebranded or repositioned. Data sets can be created in the service and presented to the report builder fully online as a self-service end product. You can continue to use Power BI Desktop, but the question is actually for how long, because the ability to create data sets in the service should remove Power BI Desktop from the chain. Data flows will be part of the data factory experience, together with pipelines for your data movement orchestration. And datamarts will be continued for now, but the question is for how long, because it actually shares many functionalities with the new data warehouse and the data set capability of that you can model it now in the Power BI service. So I want to present a use case, a fictitious use case. I want to explain the following scenario: a sales data warehouse in Fabric. And the architecture is as followed. The source data is an enterprise data lake. We use a combination of pipelines and data flows to do the ETL. In my data warehouse, that is the destination, I do some additional enrichments in SQL or maybe something in Power Query. I can have my DAX, model my data, and important, I can also create from my data warehouse fit for purpose data sets. And from the whole Power BI experience, I can build my reports and my dashboards on top of the data sets that have been created for me. So let me share my screen so that I can present you my use case. Demo time. Kijk maar. Okay. So can you all see my screen? Yeah.
Yes, we see it.
Okay. So firstly, I have created a pipeline to pick up my raw data. And let me just open this. It's very simple because the data I'm using is already, very simple. I can copy it one-on-one. But pipelines can actually get very complex based on where your data is, what kind of format the data is, what kind of conditions you need to set before you copy your data. But for now, I can just copy the data from my source one-on-one. This is actually a skill. I didn't think it was that difficult when I started with it, but automating, data streams is actually very tricky. So this pipeline copies my data from one source to the lakehouse, or no, to the one lake, I should say. And it publishes it in my data warehouse. And I think it's important to mention this. I publish the result in my data warehouse, but the data is actually residing in the one lake. And in this instance, the data warehouse is just basically the container on the that contains the view of my data. So yeah, if I open my data warehouse, you see. Now I hope that this works. This usually takes some time, but let's see. It basically is this pretty similar to the datamart experience. So you can do. You can write SQL queries, you can create new visual queries like Brit presented. There we go. And you can do actually all the sorts of things that you can also do in datamarts. So for instance, I have copied some production and sales data. Yeah, I just need to shape it a little bit more so that I have dimensional tables and a fact table, so it just represents more the real world, so to say. So I have used Power Query for this. So data flow generation 2. That is distinctive from the data flows that Ruslan has presented, and I will get to that. So pretty much the same experience. I have created my DIN tables and my fact table in a data flow. What I want to mention is with the data flow generation 1 that Ruslan presented, you are creating a data flow and you're publishing the result to your workspace. And via the workspace, you give permissions. So I think it was the contributor role. And then people with the contributor role could use the output of the data flow and import them in their data set. This is how it works in data flow generation 1. Data flow generation 2, it does work a little bit differently because, for instance, you see here, I can choose a data destination. And if I go, for instance, here, I haven't chosen the data destination just yet here. You see that I have a few options, among which the warehouse or the lakehouse. But also, I'm not really sure if I'm a fan of this, but also SQL database or Azure Data Explorer. I don't know why they chose this option to publish it again in Azure, but we'll see. I just wanted to mention this this capability. Let's see. Also, what it's good to know, because you have a destination, a clear destination like my warehouse. I'm also dealing with a destination schema. So you see, for instance, over here is that I have 3 fields. If I change anything in my warehouse, my data flow starts to cry. It doesn't know what to do because the schema just doesn't match. So you have to redo the thing again, or just you need to check what you need to adjust in order for the destination schema to fit again with the schema that you are presented with here. A limitation, I think, as well. So basically, I'm just, I've created my DIN tables in data flows. I've done this for the purpose of this demo. I think that the most users who are familiar, for instance, with SQL, or if you really are working with unstructured data, you would use a different tool. You would use the SQL endpoint, or you would use, for unstructured data, notebooks and Spark. So, but I just wanted to show you this because we are talking about the data preparation tools that we just presented. So I can publish this. So in my destination, also good to mention is that I can, I can set these destinations to like different destinations. So I can also, for instance, publish to, for instance, a lake house, also an object that data engineers are more or less are going to use. But I can set this property to each table that I'm creating. So let me close this. Okay, so I basically have configured my data flow, and I've configured that it will publish the result in my warehouse. So that happened. Of course, I prepared that. So I have over here my dimensions. So again, I can model this. I can add some docs. I can do a lot of stuff with it. I can also create a view, for instance. So let's say I just, I'm creating a sales data set for my North American salespeople. And I actually just want them to see my North American sales. So I just created a view, and I can save that view to be used in my data sets. So let me go to the experience where I can create a new data set, for instance. Yeah, so you have a default Power BI data set, and that contains everything that's in my data warehouse. I think that's overly permissive. I don't want my users to see everything. So I can create a data set that a fit for purpose data set for my end users, and I can just click, for instance, North America and the product and I don't know, the calendar. Well, if I confirm, then it creates this new data set. I may have to do some additional modeling if I haven't done that already. Cancel it now. And this is how easy it is to create a data set. And I can basically build my visualizations, of course, on top of this data set, or I can even like auto-generate a report. If let's just do that. So I've actually very easily now have created I would say a data warehouse, but also like a data set factory. The only thing is what I miss is on the workspace, you have the contributor role. Yeah, go away. You have the contributor role, and with the contributor role, I give actually build permission to all the artifacts on my workspace. And yeah, that I don't want to actually give the users or the contributors of my data set the contributor role of, in my data warehouse. So what I miss personally is on the workspace a separate role that at least distinguishes between someone building a report and someone building tables in my data warehouse. That is some functionality that I miss. I do know that Microsoft is working on a new sort of, how do you call it? The new fabric personas. And I hope that within the workspace roles, those different personas are also reflected. So this is basically the end of the session for me. Or I can show a lot of more stuff, but I think it's also good to go to some questions. I hope that that I've presented enough for you to know the general idea of fabric.
I know if we would let you go, you could go on for hours for
I can
demonstrating
really
fabric.
go for hours. I could also show a lake house, but that would be really more on the data engineering side. Yeah.
Yeah, very nice. Okay, so let's open up the lines for questions. Are there any questions from you guys?
It was very clear.
Feel free to unmute and just ask on the spot.
Hi Laura, this is Kay. The fabric, is it already operational or is it?
Well, organizations can enable this for their users or groups of users, and it's still in public review. So yes, it is operational. It is buggy. You will find that a lot of things just don't work in the right way, or it's not really that functional just yet. But you can use it. I would not use it for production things though.
Okay, thank you, Laura.
Any other questions? Any thoughts on this? In the meanwhile, I'll have a question for you, Laura. So if you're working in an enterprise BI-like team or organization, what tool would you prefer?
Well, to be quite honest, we have in the organization that I work, we have many very professional enterprise teams. They just use a data set hosted on premium because they already have a very good backend to deal with all the ETL kinds of stuff. So what tool would I use as an enterprise team? Yeah, I think the tooling there is now in Power BI might not fit the need for enterprise teams. I think Fabric is still a light version of every Azure service that you can use as an enterprise team. But it's still, in preview. Maybe there will be more things.
Yeah, okay. But you're saying that for professional data warehousing, use other tools. For visualizations, use Power BI then?
Yeah, I think it might also depend on like the complexity of your environment, the scale of your data, and I think also the size of the enterprise. Maybe I think it would be good for small scale companies. They don't have to provision like the whole platform. They don't have to do networking. They don't have to do whatever. They can just use this SaaS solution. And I think that is quite a benefit for companies that are small or
True.
relatively small.
Yeah, makes sense. I see there's 2 questions coming in the chat. Nike is asking, how is AI implemented in Fabric? Is it just visualizations?
No. How this would work, from what I understood, is that every service that is provided. So let me just quickly share. You have here all your experiences. Yeah. And every experience will come with a co-pilot. So in Power BI, you would have a co-pilot and you would like write, if you know the data, like I want to see the sales of France in 2021 for all the people who are living in urban areas. I don't know. Then the co-pilot would generate reports based on what you want from it. And that will also work, should work, for instance, for Data Factory. I want to create a pipeline who picks up all the files with this file structure and this naming convention from this location. And it would provide a template for you to build a pipeline. This is all not implemented, but it is promised. So I'm very curious. So this is how AI is sort of drives the whole platform. Yeah.
Thanks. Another question for Monique. In what time frame do you think Power BI will be replaced?
It's a very good question. I think that Fabric, they're doing a lot of stuff to enable data modeling in the Power BI service. Even without the whole Fabric experience, you can already see that in the normal Power BI environment, the old environment, so to say. So I think they're making quite some advances over there, but I don't know if that yeah. I wouldn't put a timestamp on it, to be honest. Just for now. I think it might take like years, maybe. Yeah. To get rid of it. Yeah. But that will also depend on the developments in Fabric, I think. Yeah.
Cool. Or do you mean like Power BI Desktop, Monique, perhaps?
Oh, yeah, I get it. When will Power BI be replaced with Fabric?
Yeah.
That is, yeah, years.
Maybe. Yeah, years.
Years.
Yeah.
I would guess years, but yeah.
Okay. And desktop, what's your view on that?
I think that people are just used to it. And I think, yeah, if you deprecate Power BI Desktop, then a lot of people, yeah. Right now, I wouldn't do it as Microsoft. Yeah.
Agreed.
Also years, I think.
Yeah. I think I can agree. Working for a big organization with a lot of Power BI users, I think 90% is still using desktop, and only 10% is doing things with the cloud version. So
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It is a little bit more complicated. It's just a lot of capabilities also in the cloud, and I don't know, a lot of sharing things, and people are just used to the desktop experience.
Yeah, that's true.
Old school.
Old school.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, they want to install stuff on their laptops.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
even see people share like the Power BI desktop files
Oh, yeah.
because they're just not aware that you can just publish it on the service and share it there very easily.
That's the way to share, right? Attachment, go.
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah.
So Ruslan, I have a question for you because you're also working for the same client as Laura. You recently made it the choice to choose for data flows. Can you elaborate a little bit on why you chose to use the data flows in that scenario?
I would say that for now it's just temporary solution. So I have some issues with data refreshing and loading it, and it stops my development in Power BI. And I decided to put it for some time on data flow because the time it's refreshing for data flow is the same. But I don't need to worry about Power BI desktop, so I can do my work without any lags. And it's just temporary stuff. The time I'm trying to understand what's going on with data and why I have it again, what to do with errors, and so different issues at the same time, how to refresh it much faster, not for 1 hour or maybe for a few seconds. So how to do it. So that's why it's really cool tool for me for now, because I can really do it only with data flow. So it's pretty simple, and I don't need to spend any time doing it. It's just 10 minutes for preparation. And even my colleague today prepared data flow with, I mean, he's just not just, he's business user, and he did it without any preparation. I just told him that it's simple, and he tried, and he did it for 10 minutes again. And I was surprised actually. And so in some cases, this tool is really cool, but still need to improve. And Laura already mentioned some improvements from Microsoft for Generation 2, and I think it's just the beginning. Maybe in the future they improve it much better. So I can't say that data flow is something we can't use. I know that many people use it. But for now, I see it only for some temporary solutions for tests. I can't be sure, for example, that it will work for big data. I mean, if it works for 10K for 10K, or I don't know, a few hundreds of rows, okay. But will it work for more? I can't be sure. So it's a big question.
Yeah, what you sometimes see with data flows in the organization that we work for is that it's really used as a copy tool. So, I'm just, selecting the tables from the database that I want to, use the copy tool on. And I publish it in the workspace, and I give people access to that data flow. And I basically have circumvented the whole database permission structure. Yeah.
Still some shadow IT.
Yeah.
Interesting. All right, thanks. Are there any other questions from the attendees? Feel free to open up the mic and just ask.
I would say that it was a fair comparison, because actually, guys, we had some arguments among each other, and so what's the best one, what's the worst, and yeah, it wasn't simple.
What is the target audience like? But what we have determined is that the target audience of everything on the Power Platform is business users, business analysts, BI developers, BI anything, very broad.
Yeah, it was funny. We couldn't actually find common ground in this simple question.
Yeah. So it's interesting to just focus on this, investigate it, and actually see what it can do for you. Yeah. So Britt, you've looked at datamarts previously. I don't think it was the preferred tool to use.
Well,
did your opinion change now?
Not really.
Okay.
I didn't know a lot about datamarts, but it was cool to learn about. But it was very clear that Microsoft doesn't really invest in this because of Fabric, which I understand, because Fabric is a really good solution. But I think datamarts exist for quite a while now, but it's still in preview. So that, to me, that does say something. Like, I feel like Microsoft doesn't really care about datamarts anymore because they didn't position it right or didn't sell it the right way. So I think the idea of datamarts is good, but what they worked out was not really what they intended it to be, probably.
Yeah, makes sense.
So
think it's a good
time
idea.
flies. Sorry, time flies, but we still use desktop version and some SQL.
Yeah.
So they are trying to do something, always publish some new tools, but we still use the same.
Yeah.
Never get rid of Excel, SQL, and those kind of things, I guess.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah, and I guess as long as these tooling, same for Fabric, as long as not general available but still in preview phase. Yeah, it's very tricky to use for production-wise data. So
Yeah, exactly.
it's also a consideration.
Yeah.
All right. Other questions? Feel free to ask. If not, then I'm gonna get my wrap-up slide on the screen. First of all, Laura, Britt, Ruslan, thank you very, very much for this presentation. It was a very, interesting journey for me as well to learn about all these tools. We've seen a lot of tools. We have seen what it can do, and it's great. And thanks for all the time and effort you put into it. So thank you again. The Q&A, we had that already. So then I would like to ask everyone still in the call to please be so kind to fill out our feedback form. I will also put the link of the feedback form in the chat. Otherwise, you can pick up your phone and just scan the QR code you see on the screen, and then you can give your opinion about this session. We really appreciate if you would do that, because we can improve our next sessions, and we know where we can do things better. So if you would like to take the time to do that, then it would be very much appreciated. All right, so this is a SoConnect session, SoConnect Data session. We have these sessions more often. So just to give you a quick outlook on what's ahead of us. As you can see, we still have a lot of sessions, not at least to mention another Power BI quarterly feature update, which will be at the beginning of October 5th. But next, after this one, it's already next week, is sustainable data volume management and data minimalization, which is quite an interesting topic, because what you see is that we can store all kinds of data. We can store more data, more. But just because we can store everything nowadays doesn't really mean we actually have to store everything. So how sustainable is having so much data? And in this meetup, we will be exploring how to minimize and optimize our data footprint. So be sure not to miss that next week. And another one I like to highlight is the QX Day 2023. It's about sustainable quality engineering. And it's also very interesting. It of course talks about generative AI, which is a game changer currently, but it's not the only topic in the agenda for organizations. And this goes back to the other session as well. Sustainability is a really hot topic these days. So there's a lot of sessions that day about sustainability, but also about generative AI. So feel free to join. Let yourself be inspired on this day by all the great sessions we have lined up. So mark in your calendar September 19th for that. You can see more on the URL at the bottom of your screen, and I also will put that URL in the chat as well, so that you can just click on that. You don't have to do some typing, because if that's not needed, then we shouldn't be doing that. Last thing I want to point to your attention is that you can also follow us. Let's stay connected for our blogs at medium.com and also via Meetup you can also see our upcoming events. Again, thanks all for joining. Again, a special thanks to Laura, Britt, and Ruslan. And thank you so much. Enjoy your evening, and we'll see you in the next session.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Bye.
Thank you.